have to do is get the number one seed in the conference. And I would not be surprised if the Rams win the division. I would not be surprised if the Rams are maybe in the mix. Now, they historically have started slow, but maybe that young defense makes a nice jump up. Maybe they hit on some of these draft picks. Maybe they're a dark horse candidate for Myles Garrett. Keep an eye out for that. Maybe they get some of these free agents and they end up getting a 13-4 run. I think Sean McVay then might be in the mix for Coach of the Year. It's going to be a tough needle for him to thread, but if you ask me, would I rather take their number one seed odds or Coach of the Year, or put it, I'll say it back, I'll reverse it. If you're playing Rams number one seed in the NFC, I think you should also be sprinkling here on Coach of the Year, Sean McVay. So I think they could get to a 13-4, 14-3. Now that they bring back Stafford, they have that good defense. They're playing in the division in which I think they match up well. So that's the path to Sean McVay getting it done, Coach of the Year.
If they get the one seed, is Stafford live in the MVP, 50-1?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we know the MVP basically goes to the number one or two seed, whoever their quarterback is.
Unfortunately, it's been coming from the AFC, so you have to overcome that hurdle.
Yeah.
All right. 9 of diamonds for me.
Okay.
Which, I don't mind a 9. It's not my favorite. Coach of the Year, Dave Canales, 15-1. So the more that I think about this team, the more that I am enjoying it. I think they're going to be able to add a lot in this offseason. They certainly figured something out at the end of last season. They kept the quarterback room together. It sounds like Andy Dalton's been a big part of this development. We've heard all the stories about how Adam Thielen welcomed Cooper DeJean to the NFL, and maybe he's still healthy. They have a decent amount of players where it's like if things click. Now I know Jonathan Brooks, he's probably an uphill battle to make it all the way back from a second knee injury.
He's not going to play next year.
But I'm kind of intrigued. I've been doing the best ball draft, Sean. I'm kind of intrigued with Bryce Young where he's going off, and you mentioned the opportunity for improvement. Let's call the NFC South what it is. It's not exactly a division, even though we both like the Bucs. Could we see the Panthers making a move up here? Saints look to be taking a step back. Who knows with the Falcons?
Yeah. No, I mean, Panthers are 5-12. If they get to 11-6, 10-7,
they don't have to do like for Dave Canales. It could be as simple as just winning the division and Bryce Young being back to. He's better than C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. So I think there's a lot less degree of difficulty here, and the price isn't that bad. So I don't mind this one. He also, as a head coach, comes off for being a kind of a weirdo. He's coming off more and more like a likable guy to me.
Well, and I guess I would toss into that, like price shop that price of Coach of the Year compared to them winning the division. I think they're going to catch some interest from the market. And you might be able to get out ahead of it by playing the Coach of the Year instead of the division price, because I think that might be the way to attack it.
You do have to be careful. The Eric Eager hire has brought them a lot of popularity amongst the spreadsheet charts out there.
People like to see, they finished strong. They had they lost close to the Eagles. They had a close loss against the Chiefs. Like everyone, obviously Commanders are going to catch a ton of hype, but also the Panthers will be everyone's surprise team.
Third long shot in the conference, but they do have shorter odds than the Saints. So their odds to win the division can't be better than like 657.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. If they win the division, he's in the mix for Coach of the Year. So
better again, price shopping these is an easy move. All right.
So I'm sitting on a 7 against an ace.
6 of diamonds.
I got a 13. 6 of diamonds.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh. Shane Steichen. This is a nice little redemption story. And I certainly think they're in the mix for Coach of the Year because
he fixes Anthony Richardson.
I mean, that's really, 8-9, if he fixes Anthony Richardson and they go 11-6 and win the AFC South. Now, normally you have to jump up a bunch in wins, but I think if he gets a good season out of Anthony Richardson, you might be cashing that comeback player of the year that we're talking about. But certainly him at 20-1, again, compare that to them winning the division. If they win the division with Anthony Richardson starting, I think he's going to get a ton of credit for that redemption, for being able to coach him up. It's very clear that he's a work in progress. So if they get a good year out of Anthony Richardson, he's going to be right in that mix at 20-1 for Coach of the Year. So, and the Texans, I don't think they're locked to win the division. Jags and Titans, more questions than answers.
Texans will be chalk. Jags and Colts should have about the same odds. Yeah. So, I mean, they could be the second favorite in the division.
Yeah, and maybe they don't bring in a veteran quarterback, and they're just like, hey, we're going to live and die with Anthony Richardson.
I think they bring in a vet, but yeah.
Well, that's I think would hurt their case a little bit there. If they bring in a vet and the vet carries them, if Kirk Cousins takes them to 11-6, it's not as exciting. The narrative isn't as sexy.
Honestly, like as much as I love Jameis and the Giants, Jameis going to the Colts, helping Anthony Richardson mature into
I love
the
how
man.
every scenario just involves. But what if Jameis was in there? Kramer, you got a 9. What do you got?
8 of clubs.
Oh, you got a 17?
17. Not very exciting either. 8 of clubs.
MVP Justin Herbert 18-1.
Yeah, you have to like this because it's a regular season award. And if you're gonna like I said this going into last year when I was wrong about saying, Harbaugh, love it, but wait till year 2. Now it's year 2. They're gonna bring in some more pieces. The offensive line is gonna be more shored up. The running game is gonna be more impactful. I'm a little worried about the defense getting some replacements in, but I trust that coaching staff to get the guys in the right place. And to your point on narrative stuff, people love Justin Herbert for some reason.
Yeah.
And if they have a year where they usurp the Chiefs in that division and take it down, absolutely.
Oh, he's better than Jalen Hurts. So I got a 13 against an ace. You're staying with the 17. Hit me.
Jack of
Diamonds. Let's see what the dealer has. Play it out.
Oh, no.
Oh, dealer blackjack, Ryan.
No.
That is not a good sign. But maybe we get the dealer blackjack out of the way in the studio, setting the vibe, the energy good for when we go out and hit the 3-2 blackjack over at the Circa. We're going to be doubling down with our next guest. You know him from the NBA Gambling Podcast, Scott Reichel, here to talk NBA picks for Saturday when we return.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and Shelter Pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You make sure his toys don't have any sharp edges. You taught her what to do when the smoke alarm goes off. You do so much to keep your child safe. But are you using the right car seat for your child? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Protect your child's future at every stage of life. For information on the right seat for your child, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. So you see, son, good manners are important. Should I go through it again?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open, don't speak with your mouth full, keep your elbows off the table. Share your things, play nice, and generally treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day, making sure they brush their teeth, is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
I'm a retired school psychologist, and helping people was my thing. After my stroke, when Meals on Wheels started, I was on the other end of the stick, so to speak. My name is Julius Gaines, creative writer, poet, photographer.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
Catch all of the spring and summer action of Cleveland Cobras minor league football on Western Reserve Radio. Follow the Cobras as they compete against teams from around the region in pursuit of a Tri-Point Football League championship. And if you're looking to continue your football career after high school, college, or even the pros, or to be part of the Cobras staff, go to Facebook at Cleveland Cobras Football, or contact owner Jesse Caldwell at 330-416-3442. Be a part of the excitement of Cleveland Cobras football.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
It's time to kick back and listen to the sports page with your host, Pat Lucia, right here on Western Reserve Radio. You can call the show at 330-707-4202 and tell everyone what's on your mind in the wonderful world of sports. Now, here's your host, Pat Lucia.
Saturday morning sports page. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark. 330-707-4202. Get in, talk sports. Do it every Saturday morning here, Western Reserve Radio, from 9 to 11. Oh, Dave Clark, so much to get to in the wonderful world of sports today. The NFL, the free agents, just really getting interesting here. It looks like, well, Matt Stafford is off the market.
Yep.
So all the Giant fans who thought that was a good idea, that because the Giants evidently really wanted him and were pretty much ready to go whatever it needed to get him. It looks like obviously the Giants are desperate. We'll get to that. So that does not happen. Matt Stafford will stay with the Rams. Are going to rework the contract, which never really, to me, made a lot of sense, him leaving the Rams anyway. Why would he go to the Rams? I mean, why would he leave the Rams and go to a team like the Giants, where the offensive line has been pretty much a literal disaster for probably 10 years, at least, that I could remember. Why would he want to go there and then play with a crappy team, run for his life, get hurt? The Giants would win, are only going to win 6. Maybe Stafford gets them 7 games instead of 6 games or 5 games. And they're going to fire the coach and the GM at the end of the year anyway. If I was a betting man, I would go out and bet a lot of money on the fact that Dable and Shane will not last. Well, they'll make it through the year, but maybe. But I'm convinced that the Giants are going to be another 4 or 5 win season ahead of us. I just don't see anything different. And therefore, I think Mara will have no other option but to fire them, which he should have just done this year. But we've kicked that puppy around. So anyway, I do digress. But bottom line is Stafford is not going anywhere. That opens up the door to obviously what free agent quarterbacks out there, Darnold, Aaron Rodgers. Those 2 names have been bantered around, potentially maybe Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. They're also in that mix. If I was a Giant fan, I would probably say that they need to get a Justin Fields, and the only reason why it's not good for Justin Fields to go to there, but he can run around, and the Giants need a quarterback that can run around because that's why it made no sense Stafford. And I hesitate having Rodgers go there is because Rodgers is a little bit more maybe mobile than Stafford, maybe slightly, maybe not, kind of whatever. But because of the offensive line problems and the fact they really don't have a running game, any quarterback there is going to have to do a lot of improvising. And Fields can do that. And he could probably, I would think he's a fit for the Giants because he can move around, make things happen, because he's going to have to do that. Rodgers, it's just that he's old. He's coming off that Achilles tear from a couple years now. He doesn't move around well. He's not really going to be a good fit for the Giants. We're going to have to wait, obviously, this out. Then we get into the draft. The Giants hold the 3rd round pick. The rumor is the Giants aren't really interested in these quarterbacks in this draft. So they want to go the veteran route. I can understand that because they bring in a rookie with this team and that's got disaster written all over it. I mean, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, I don't know how good they really are. I know a lot of draft experts are iffy on both of them. They don't, nobody's running and ranting saying, Cam Ward's the great, is the best quarterback. Really nobody's saying that. They think this group of quarterbacks may be like an average class at best. You don't know.
No, because
nobody knows though.
Like I said, I like what Bart Scott said I watched him he's on the NFL Network, and he said something. He said they always call them, even him now as a retired player.
Oh yeah,
the experts.
Yeah,
so we're no experts. We're expert guessers. That's what he said because they don't. I mean, they can look at certain things and say, "Hey, this guy could be successful. This guy won't." You don't know until they play. And Justin Fields going there. I mean, far as the mobility part, that's good. But where's Justin Fields is in his development?
That's not
as a
good.
Quarterback, right?
That's
so
not good.
Going there and running around is not going to help him be an established quarterback. So he's got to think about his thing. Where do he wants to go? Somewhere that has weapons around him, and not only that, you want to make sure that the coaching is very good in that position, so he can advance because he has the talent, but he just hasn't advanced. He's like locked in a level where he's at, but he needs somewhere where he can be more stable and stuff like that. So I think I would move back in the draft and maybe take a Jackson Dart later and then get a veteran. Somebody Aaron Rodgers will move more than our guy Matt Stafford a little bit more, but they both similar. Sam Darnold, he definitely can move around. I mean, I don't know what you do in this position as far as what you can advance. I mean, like I said, Justin Fields is a definite interesting thing. It's just where he feels he's at as a developed quarterback. Do you want to go in that situation? And I think Stafford looked at the situation, was Giants, the Raiders, or whoever, and said, okay, because I heard him say the Raiders got some pieces.
Right.
He said, but he didn't know if he wanted to go there, and then how much were they going to offer? Whereas the Giants was going to offer all kinds of things. But then he said, I only got, he's looking at the receiving core, Neighbors, some of the other young guys that still haven't developed yet. So I don't know if I want that. He doesn't have an established tight end, something that Stafford does utilize a lot. So no line, no safety valve or our blanket in a tight end. I like Tracy. I do like him, but he's not an established running back yet. But I don't let that guy go because he shows he can run the football. But you look at all those things, and his agent probably said, hey, just re-sign. Because there was some things about him going to San Fran. Yeah. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, they were right.
He might have looked at, but they're not going to allow him to go to San Fran. That's for sure.
No, they're not. I mean, and ultimately, I guess the word is San Francisco's working on a deal with Brock Purdy, to keep him.
Yeah.
And they'll probably, my guess is he'll sign a team-friendly deal.
Yeah. I mean, that would be good for Purdy to not to move around. No. Stay there in that system.
Right.
It's a friendly system for him. He goes somewhere else and everybody's, oh, he's terrible, he's a bust. Well, I mean, I just think certain guys fit in certain systems and they can be successful.
Yeah.
So, that's why I look at all these quarterbacks. Guys got to be smart and say, does he fit what we want to do? And if that quarterback fits what you want to do, he probably will be successful. Because Cam Ward looks like a smart guy. Shador looks pretty smart. Jackson Dart, with all those reps he done got as a college quarterback, those guys, I think, could do some things, but you got to make sure they fit your system.
Right.
Don't just plug and play and think they just come in there and they'll be great. That might not happen. So,
and that's kind of where, when you look at teams like Stafford picking the right team based on how you play and do you fit into a system? But like what amazed me is the fact that the Rams, I didn't really get why the Rams were interested in letting him go anyway, because they got pretty close to beating the Eagles. I mean,
I don't think they really wanted to let him go, but at first his agent was asking for a certain amount on the market.
Right.
Then they looked at, age. He has been dinged up a little bit.
Right.
And does that fit what they got as far as money? And they wasn't going where that agent first wanted to go. So they said, go and check other teams. Well, that was on purpose. So they can see what the market is and then work from there. And then it came to something where they both was, agreeable. But that amount that they was asked at first, they was saying, hey, I think 37. I think he'd be 37, or he is 37.
I think he is 37.
Yeah. So they looking at, hey, we don't want to invest that type of money right now in a guy. We have to be something that's going to be friendly and where we may be able to bring in your successor, or something like that. So
he just turned 37.
Okay. Yep. So that's
February 7th. He turned 37.
Yeah. Cause I've been watching a lot of this stuff in the NFL, what's going on in there, and trying to have some type of information when we come in here. But that's the thing that that agent was asking quite a bit on the original counter offer that he put in there, and the Rams wasn't too thrilled in doing that.
Yeah, and I guess bottom line is, I think the Rams had the chance to sit down. They had a chance to see. I think at the end of the day, they all kind of came to their senses.
Yeah. Well, I think the Rams, that was smart on them saying, hey, go ahead and explore a trade, but it was on purpose so they can see what they're fielding them. And then they can get and negotiate and come to something. Because I think that it would have strapped them later on, and they want to stay competitive. McVay, I'm sure he wants to keep his team competitive all the way down. the road. And they're not old.
No.
As a team, they're not old. No. So he's building it right back the right way. So
they've had a lot of success in drafting the Rams.
Oh, yeah, they've been great in the drafts.
Getting the later, because they didn't have any first rounders. Yep. They've been drafting the second and third, fourth rounders and hitting on those picks. And they've built that team that way.
To say again for Bart Scott, he said Brad Holmes was a great evaluator. I mean, he is a great evaluator. He's with Detroit now.
Right.
But he built that Rams team to get to where they need to get to. And he taught a lot of those guys. Now they take over. They know the system and how to do it. And they've been doing good on their draft. Yeah. They hit a lot on late picks.
Late picks.
And then how they get certain guys, I know they got Verse in the draft last year. I think he's first rounder. But right after that, how in the world did you get Fisk, the Florida State defensive tackle, who was a teammate of Verse? How do you get him and how good he was in college? And he slipped through the cracks. They moved up and got him in the second round. I mean, just great evaluation. And them guys been starting. It was effective as rookies. Yeah. Wow. That's something. That's just good. That's what you want. That's what you want to see your team do. So.
Well, at the end of the day, the Rams have their quarterback.
Yep. Don't have to worry about them on the
market. Don't have to worry about it. You got the Giants now and set back in their eyes because they had their hopes. I think they hired his brother-in-law as a coach or an evaluator. It was Stafford's brother-in-law is actually working for the Giants.
He is.
As like a coach.
Yeah, that's what they thought they had a little inside track.
They had an inside track there, and it didn't quite work out. So he will not obviously go anywhere, but the Ram fans should be happy because you became very close. You almost beat the Eagles. You gave the Eagles the best. I would say they were the most competitive team with the Eagles in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And you look at the Eagles' path to the playoffs, that was their closest game was the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
I would even make the argument, looking at the Eagles play, the easiest game they had in the playoffs was the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, they just had a great game plan for that. That's all. They had a great game plan and made it look so easy.
I mean, Washington really wasn't that game against Washington.
Early on, it was competitive.
Competitive for a bit. They beat the Packers initially.
Yeah.
That game was fairly competitive.
Yeah, that was.
That was. But I never thought the Eagles were in peril of losing that game. But, I mean, the Packer game, they were winning. I mean, but if you look at the game, I mean, the Ram game, Rams had a chance to win the game. They had the ball 20-yard line. Stafford got sacked. That killed it. But if he doesn't get sacked, they had a shot of scoring a touchdown and kicking an extra point and winning by 1 point because they were only down by 6 at the time. So the point is, when you look at the way the Rams played, the Rams were, 1 or 2 plays from the Super Bowl, potentially.
Yeah.
And that's how they played, is they gave the Eagles the best game the Eagles played all in the playoffs. The easiest game for the Eagles in the playoffs was the Super Bowl because that game was over. Come on. We knew that game was over at halftime. When DeGene ran the ball in to make it 17-0, I had a really bad feeling that game was kind of over then.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, maybe KC had a shot.
I never with Mahomes. That's not too much.
You never know.
But when I seen the dominance after that, it still was like nothing changed.
Nothing changed. And then when they scored to make it 24-0 at half, I thought it was over.
I just thought they did a great job game planning against them. They exploited all their weaknesses. They made sure to exploit them, and that's what you got to do. Excellent job in doing that, and that's what did it. The Rams was now they was fortunate. It was in a place where they could have beat the Eagles. Bad weather, snowing, so it shut down a lot of the Eagles' passing game. So you concentrate on the run. Now, they warm down, and Barkley breaks them, but that's why that was a competitive game because the Rams can also run the football. and they got a good offensive line. So it was also, that's why that game was so nice, nip and tuck, because they had a tough running game and they could, play that physical ball too. So it definitely was, it's just that I think more horses with the Eagles. When I say that, I'm talking about that defensive line being able to rotate guys out, and they're just as good as first guys that's in there. You can stay fresh like that, and the Rams couldn't do that. You're going to wear down later on in a physical, cold, snowy, nasty day type of game. You get it. That's basically what won it. And then it just dominated KC. There was no, that wasn't even a contest, which shocked me. But, they got it. The Rams, they want to keep Stafford anyway. Forget about how close it was the Super Bowl. You got a division that is no joke. You think San Francisco is going to stay down? No, they'll reload so quick. And you just never know what's coming out of Arizona. And then we know how Seattle is always a competitive team. I don't care what it is; they're always going to be competitive in that division. So
yeah, they always. Seattle's a funny team.
Yeah, because nobody actually. I don't even talk about them, but they're always in the mix.
Always.
Yeah, always in there.
Always.
And you'll look at it and say, how are they in there? But they be in there all the time. So that's a great division. It is.
Yeah. I mean,
very good division.
You got Seattle. You got San Fran. You got the Rams in that division and the Cardinals. And Arizona's always a wild card. They're like the wild card team of wild cards because you
don't know.
You just don't ever know what they're going to do team wise and game wise. They're so kind of up and down. They're erratic,
right?
But they could come in, and Murray he's kind of a wild card as the quarterback because he could just make stuff happen.
Yeah. That guy does all kinds.
And he just does all kinds of.
Isn't it kind of quiet? They haven't, that he's a possibility of not being there because they said when they was losing that last game, the chance of getting into the playoffs, he was just heartbroken because he felt that's it. That's his last time playing for Arizona. But I didn't realize I don't think he's a free agent, but it must be something in the contract or something where they could. I just haven't heard anything out of them about anything about moving Murray or anything of that nature. But he would be very interesting to somebody if he comes available.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Remember, I was hearing all that at the end of the season, that last game, all that, this could be it. And that's why I said I never looked it up to see if because I didn't think he was a pending free agent. But if he is,
basically, let's see what he's got.
He's got an option year or something.
I just signed that deal. Well, he's going to be there. I mean, he's getting next year, 2025, this year coming up. He gets $18 million base. He's got a prorated signing bonus of $58. Then he's got the roster bonus of $11.9. It's $45. His cap hit would be $45 million. And then his dead cap hit would be $63 million. Next year, he makes $55 million. And the cap hit's only $20 million. But I guess if they wanted to move on from him, the dead cap hit would be $63 million. Make it about $45 million. It looks like when you throw these contracts, crack me up because it's like, rated prorated. They got a roster bonus. Then you got the option prorated bonus, a workout bonus. But at the end of the day, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't understand why they was talking about it. Yeah, it must be something for him to be available.
I need to probably look into that because I wonder if they've got some kind of a buyout or some clause in there that they can get, potentially move on from him. But it looks like the dead cap hit would still be pretty significant. Now, next year, if they wanted to get out from under him, the hit would only be $20 million dead cap. So that I would think he would be there for another year. After that, after next year, it looks like there is doable. So I'll have to look into see because it doesn't look like he's really going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I don't know why. I don't see anything that they can get, without taking a $68 million dead cap hit. That's not in quite the Deshaun Watson neighborhood of $120 million.
I wonder if they got or think of trade. I don't know. We're going to see, though, if anything start to come up. This is the month now. It is March 1st. This is the month we probably start hearing a lot of things with free agency, getting close to the draft times. So we'll start hearing some. If anything's going to happen, I'm sure we'll start hearing something.
Yeah, it would be because it doesn't know. I mean, my guess is he's really not going to go anywhere from the Cardinals. Potentially at the end of the year, next year,
it could happen.
But they could, consider it. But I mean, here's the other problem we ultimately talk about. But it's kind of like the Jets and Rodgers. They don't want Rodgers. I get it, and I know they have they want to have an attitude change. New coach, new GM.
Mm-hmm.
Rodgers takes too much air out of the room, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But who are they going to get? I mean, who are the Jets going to get to play quarterback? I mean, that's the question you have here. Justin Fields, maybe?
Yeah. I think that's a good chance of him being.
He goes to the Jets, or does he go to the Giants? I mean, Fields could be, Russell Wilson. I mean, then, okay, if they leave, who does Pittsburgh get? Because then you open up that door and that hole, say, okay, if Pittsburgh decides they don't want either one, and Fields and Russell there are the free agents, they can move on, then what do they do for the quarterback? Who do they go get? Do they want Rodgers? Again, Rodgers is 41 years old. So coming off the ACL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where does Rodgers go? Rumor was yesterday that the Giants were looking at Darnold, Rodgers, and they were also looking, I believe, at Darnold, Rodgers, and Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
But people say they don't think Darnold will go back to New York.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
Unless the money's right. You see, there's always the money.
Yeah.
I know what they say. Well, he doesn't want to go back. Yeah, but if they offer him the most money and the contract's better, he might go because the money's better.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but maybe not.
Yeah, maybe he's the guy that said, "Hey, I'm seeing ghosts in this building." Remember, he made that statement. He was
the one that saw ghosts.
He's seen ghosts there, but he may not want to ever go back to Meadowlands.
The way the Giants are play, you think that building is haunted?
Yeah, he may say, "Nope, I'm not going there." So, regardless of the money, he's going to get I think he's going to get a nice little check, though, for sure. Yeah. Somebody's going to have to pick him up. He fell flat on his face in the last two games, but you look at the total of that season, he had a great season.
No, he played great.
Yeah.
He really take the two games out.
Yeah. Oh, he was great. So
he really had one of his better. Yeah. He had maybe his best season, less those two games.
Right. And then, people are going to look at, hey, those are the biggest two. That's going to cut down some of what he would have gotten.
Right.
So they're saying, hey, those are the biggest games. You're going to have to get past that, in which it can happen, but we're not paying you that kind of money just yet that maybe that agent might want. So they it's just going to be interesting because this is what I love this time of season. This is perfect. That's like you said last week, we got the draft and all that. You got everything going on from the NCAA basketball, men and women's.
Yeah.
The playoffs, NBA playoffs coming, draft news all day long. This used to be boring back in the day. This is not a boring time now.
No. I mean, where it's really evolved to, the NFL has almost been a 12-month sport.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I got to say it is. I don't know which month we say. What month can we say that's? I don't know what much you can say it.
Maybe was it
May?
I was thinking May or June, but
yeah, but then they start OTAs in June.
They start the OTAs.
You start hearing a lot of stuff then. So May, you got them 3 weeks or so after the draft.
Right.
It's like 3 or 4 weeks.
But then we sit and talk about the draft
for weeks,
for a few weeks before and after.
And then it's OTAs. And then that's
you get the OTAs. And then before you know it, you're looking into the spring training.
Yeah.
And then from there, then you got college football that comes up on the calendar.
See, it's. I think maybe some weeks. I don't even know if we got a month off.
No,
really bad.
Probably
a couple weeks.
No, and then obviously you got the NBA. Playoffs May and June.
Yeah, it's heating up too. I can see this is the way they're playing.
Start. Saturday morning sports page, first quarter in the books. Saturday coming back after a quick timeout. Western Reserve Radio.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Sherman Gillums Jr., Paralyzed Veterans of America.
For more than 70 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has helped hundreds of thousands of veterans get all the benefits they have earned.
Al Kovac Jr., Paralyzed Veterans of America.
We provide one-on-one support tailored to your individual needs, including healthcare advocacy, benefits support, and career assistance.
For more information, call 1-800-424-8200 or visit pva.org. A public service of Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Saturday morning sports page, 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports. Do it every Saturday morning here, and here is Western Reserve Radio from 9 to 11. Dave Clark, as we were kind of talking the NFL, a lot of free agents, we're going to kind of get to the list here, look it over. But switching over a little bit, the NBA is now getting interesting. Like, they're down, it's 82 games. I know the season is too long. I know everybody, most people, believe that they need to cut down the games. They don't need to play 82. Right. Baseball doesn't need to play 162 either. We kind of go through that every year. Too many games, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And there's people out there that still believe that they shouldn't be playing. Somebody called I was listening to a show, guy called and he's just upset that college football is going to 14 games. Playoff. Oh, this is Travis. College can't have 14 game playoff teams in the playoff because that's too many teams in the college football playoffs. You can't have that. And then he goes, and then they're talking about getting to 16. It'll ruin the sport. No, it's not going to ruin anything.
No.
If anything, you're going to get interest now the games now it's nice as teams can lose a game here or there and still get into the playoff, which is what we like. But it's the old saying, the cliche, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Once it's out, once they have the money, and now they're talking about the NCAA tournament expanding.
Right.
Now they had a statement come out, Gabbert, the president of the NCAA, I'm not sure. He came out and said they haven't decided yet on the expansion.
Mm-hmm.
It's still kind of up in the air. But you and I and everybody knows that in time, because they're looking at money, and that's what always drives this boat, they're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's better anyway. I mean, what is it? How many Division I teams is 111? It might be more than that. Might be a little bit more than that. But back in the day, we went with 2 teams. Sometimes it wasn't even the 2 teams, the 2 best teams. It's just whoever was ranked number 1. And as long as they win and win convincingly over the number 2 team, and what they do, they're the national champion.
They're national, right?
Then we finally came up with the tournament. Yeah, years ago.
Oh,
it's just who
for many years.
Yeah, and that I never thought was great. That's just it's like you and I sitting here, and I say, okay, Penn State's number 1, Ohio State's number 2, USC's number 3, and you say no. USC's number 1. Oh, that's all. And then if the AP is over they get it. I mean, it's just, or it'd be split championships. How many times have they had that?
They had one years ago. This is, I believe, in 1994 or 1995. One of those years.
Was Penn State a part of that?
That's it.
Yep.
Kajana Carter was playing for Penn State. I think it was the 94 team.
Mm-hmm.
They went undefeated. They were an unbelievable team. Kajana Carter was just an unbelievable college back. He was a break away from a touchdown. One broken tackle, he was gone. I remember watching him at Penn State. He went to Westerville South High School, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where I went to school. But Kajana Carter is sadly, he was, people, he was a bust in the pros. No, he blew his knee out on that horrific AstroTurf in Seattle. I believe he got the ankle or caught in a seam playing a game up there, I believe it, and it was early in the season. Yeah, he blew the knee ACL, and then another injury, and he just was not ever the same after that.
And technology wasn't the same back then as it is today.
No, and he had a very short pro career due to bad injuries, but he was an unbelievable running back at Penn State, a great college running back, one of the best, I'll say that. And Penn State went undefeated that year, and Nebraska went undefeated that year. But because Penn State was in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten was committed to playing the Rose Bowl, Penn State couldn't play Nebraska, and they gave Nebraska the national title. But Penn State, was just as good, if not better, but they voted Nebraska in, which to this day, college football to me was broken then. And it had been all those years, because when you start having a vote in, you never played it on the field. That's a joke. That's ridiculous.
Right.
All year long, these kids go out and play hard. They played back then 11 games.
Yeah.
Then ultimately, not when you go undefeated, you are the best team in the country. The eye test.
Right.
And everyone kept saying, well, can't they just put Nebraska and Penn State and let them play in a bowl after the bowls? They were talking. It was never going to happen. Sadly, it was never going to happen. But the point is, I always thought that probably propelled them to at least add that end one at the end of the season, where they actually had they had the 2 teams playing off.
Yeah.
Because of that Nebraska Penn State.
Yeah.
Which was just, to me, it was a horrific joke, because you had a great Penn State team. Collins was the quarterback. Kerry Collins was their quarterback. Yeah. Kajana Carter was the running back.
Right.
And I remember
it's just terrible.
Horrible.
Yeah. And that's what it used to be. It comes down to writers.
It was the writers.
And whoever they pick who
they think.
So basically, as a writer, we could have just said in the week 3, right, you know what? I like so-and-so. If they go undefeated, that's who I'm getting.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, instead of earning it on the field. See, people don't know. The young people do not know what we do as the old Grizzly guys that went through back then. Because I used to get on my nerves. I think Alabama did it also with somebody. I mean, it's just, I think Notre Dame and somebody shared the title. I forgot. It might have been Notre Dame in Alabama. But regardless, it's just too much of that. And you said you heard somebody complaining that 14 is going to ruin the sport. That enhanced it. They just don't know. You think they're not going to 16? Yeah, I think so.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm glad they've got to 12. I liked 4, but I would rather take 12.
Oh, yeah, me too.
They're supposedly now, this year will be 12, but then the next year's 14. They're going to get to 14. They're going to wait a year and then
get there
and get to 14.
Yeah, but I think another thing like we talked about, maybe they'll work on it. The seating.
The seating probably needs to be improved a little bit.
Adjusted a little bit on that.
And that's kind of what I always thought is they really need. I'm looking at it. It says back in 1994. Nebraska beat Miami in the Orange Bowl and was named national titles, while Penn State defeated Oregon in the Rose Bowl, but they didn't win the national title. And that's sad because, to me, you could have argued that to the cows come home. I thought Penn State was better than Nebraska. I certainly would have loved to see that game, but that was not going to happen. But to me, that's what maybe propelled at least get to that 2-team playoff. Now it's 14. And I know people are whining, going to be 14, it's 12, but people are whining about the matchups and the seeding. Yeah, they'll work on it, but I don't have
to work out some kinks.
If they had 4 teams, Ohio State doesn't win the national title.
That's right.
They would have been out.
Yeah. And you have to, I just like expand it because you want to try to get as many as the best teams in there.
And let them,
Yeah, just so they lost early in the season or somebody lost. It's like Notre Dame lost that game against Northern Illinois.
Right.
So back in the day, they're done.
They probably would have been, they would have been done under 4 teams.
Yeah, but they played great.
All year.
All year long. And when you play like that on the field, you have to give them an opportunity to see if they can win it. And they did get to the national championship game. They lost it, but they got there. That wouldn't have happened back, like you said. Or both teams. Just think of that. Both teams in the national championship would not have made it back if it was back at 4.
Good point.
Neither one.
Is those 2 teams under the 4. In fact, I think if they would have gotten to 4 teams, I don't think any of the semifinalists go. Like if they would have got to the top 4.
Yeah, let me think. Let's see who did Notre Dame beat to get there?
They beat Penn State to get to. No, I don't think this. No, there's a good question.
I don't even think Penn State gets in.
Penn State doesn't get in under 14 playoff. It would have been Oregon gets in because they were undefeated and won the conference.
That's right.
So they get in.
And who did Ohio State play? To Texas? It was Texas, right?
Yeah, but Texas didn't win the because they didn't get the first round bye. Georgia got the bye.
Yeah.
So Georgia won the SEC, so Texas doesn't get in.
Because that's right. None of them.
Right.
All 4 teams would not be in that 14 playoff. See?
Right. See?
That's
so
why.
Going to 12 teams, you created a whole different playoff. A great playoff. I mean, I thought it was great. I know people were whining about the early games kind of being blowouts, but
that's like I said, it was a seeding,
and that's kind of a seeding issue. They could probably work on that, but I think what I like is the fact that nobody can question Ohio State winning a national title because they had the hardest path. They beat Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame. Nobody can argue. Well, no, Ohio State doesn't really deserve it because they had the hardest path to get to the title game, and they won it. They won all their games. They played the hardest path to get there was Ohio State.
Yeah.
So they won it. Nobody could question,
and you're always going to have naysayers and everything, though, because somebody's going to come up with, this, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Whoever wins, they're always going to,
Right.
I mean, every time. I remember seeing when Miami, Florida was winning the national championship, there was always something about it. I see it today. Even when you think about your team, the Giants winning the Super Bowl, because of whatever. It was always something, especially in those New England games. It was always something.
Right.
If this wasn't, it's a lot of things. A lot of ifs and buts.
Oh, yeah.
And candy and nuts.
We'd all have a Merry Christmas.
But that's always that. Yeah, I mean, come on. That stuff happens all the time. I hear stuff with I forgot what the guy said. Well, they made bad calls. It was a guy that said that to me, a Kansas City guy. And I said, are you really saying that?
You mean this past game?
This past game guy, bad calls. I said, you playing, right?
Come on,
I
stop
asked
it.
him. I said, you kidding with me, right?
No.
And he said, no, you seen them call. I said, did you see all the calls that they had during the season?
Yeah.
Did you even see the call when we played each other last time in the Super Bowl? A tug that's been going on all season. Come on, man. No. Things happen. I said, but this time you can call all the bad calls you want. That was total domination. And I'm glad they won it that way because there was no question about it. I don't care
referee.
He got beat.
Right. It didn't come down to the referees bailing anybody out.
Right.
No questionable call like they had the other Super Bowl with Philly and Kansas City. That holding call that still drives everybody. Right. Just drove everybody crazy. Bottom line, this time around, the referees got bailed out because Philadelphia totally dominated the game, the line of scrimmage, that the referees didn't have to worry about a questionable call because the game was pretty much over at halftime. And then after that, the second half, those two touchdowns KC got at the end were two giveaway touchdowns because they were losing 40-6. And then they scored those last couple touchdowns to make it look like a game that it never was.
Yeah. That was another thing he was saying. He said, you see how they was coming back? I said, I seen that. I seen they had their second and third team safeties and corners.
They were celebrating.
Yeah.
Philadelphia was celebrating the Super Bowl when it was 40-6 and those two touchdowns at the end, like you said.
It was a gift.
That was a gift. They didn't care. They won the Super Bowl. And now that game was never close. It was over at halftime. I didn't think it was much of a game from a standpoint of being competitive. Kansas City, Mahomes came out. He seemed flustered from the opening snap, the opening possession. He didn't look right. The team seemed off kilter, and Philadelphia was just rushing the four down linemen.
Yeah, you're not going to win. I don't care what team it is. They can just rush four and leave seven in coverage. You're going to have a lot of problems.
And Mahomes was clearly flustered and being run. I mean, you could tell those four down linemen were in that backfield, and Mahomes was. I don't care how great a quarterback is. It goes back to, if you don't have an effective line play, you're not going to win a game.
Yeah.
I go back to the Giants and Stafford. They don't have a good line. He's 37 years old. That wasn't going to work for the Giants anyway. I don't know why you'd want to go there anyway, because playing at MetLife in the wind tunnel in December with cold rain, ice, and snow, and then having not only that, but having a bad offensive line and an average defense, it was a disaster waiting to happen for Stafford. And obviously that's not going to happen. But, kind of getting right back to where we're talking about the Super Bowl not being really competitive. And then bottom line is, though, they're never going to play less teams. They're not playing less games. The NBA is never going to play less than 82 games a year. Baseball's not playing 162 games. Those owners are looking at money first. Then competition comes second. College football, baseball. Those presidents look for money first, competition second.
Right.
Irish Mike calls in, talks about Notre Dame going to Maryland and Annapolis to play Navy in a home game, and they're going to go someplace else and play a, quote, home game because they want to stick Notre Dame on TV.
Yeah.
Prime time. Ohio State's same way. They love putting Ohio State on at prime time because of ratings. Ratings mean money. Oh. I don't care what people scream and yell. At the end of the day, follow the green, follow the ratings. When you get good ratings, NFL, college football, TV bows down to you. When your ratings are so-and-so, then all of a sudden, baseball, you get stuck on FS1 at 11 o'clock at night playing some game. Drive the boat.
Yeah. That's why, people hate the Dallas Cowboys. And I used to be a big fan of them, but I don't care. They're the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to come on in prime time.
On Monday or Sunday night. And
they're coming.
And they're not moving. Do you ever notice this came up during the year?
Thanksgiving stuff?
Yeah. They're always talking about, Mad Dog Russo's great for this. He always talks about, getting the garbage out. The garbage games, get them out of prime time. Okay, I get it. Dallas Cowboys, even when the Dallas Cowboys aren't good, like this past year, they were mediocre at best. They were never flexing Dallas out of prime time.
No.
I mean, Sunday night, Monday night, Dallas Cowboys are there playing Sunday night, Monday night, and getting good ratings or big ratings.
No matter
Thanksgiving Day, they played the Giants. The ratings were through the roof.
And will always be.
And I know people say, they were saying, well, because it's Thanksgiving, everybody's home, they have to watch TV. That's why the ratings are good. Yeah, maybe, but
it's just
it's Dallas.
It is.
And Dallas Cowboys bring eyeballs to the set. Yeah. Even if they're an average or mediocre like they were this past year, being nice, they weren't really good. But point on it is this. Certain teams drive the boat, and driving the ratings boat, the NFL drives ratings boats. Mm-hmm. TV bows down in the NFL. When Prime's giving you $1 billion a year to stream your games on Thursday night, enough said. Peacock, all these streaming services, and this gets me back to this. The NBA ratings are down. They're down from last year significantly. Now people are saying, well, how are they going to get the money for TV next year? Going NBC and Prime streaming. Mm-hmm. NBC's giving them a boatload of money, even though the ratings aren't that good. Mm-hmm. People go, why are they getting all the money when the ratings are bad? Because NBC is going to stream all the NBA games on Peacock, and that's how they're going to pay for the package. Mm-hmm. Prime is going to stream a lot of games on Prime. Well, they're going to stream everything on Prime, any NBA game, and therefore that's how they're going to get the NBA to pay for that. I think the total we talked about, I don't know if it's changed much, but I thought it was $7 billion is what the NBA was getting.
Yeah.
People are astounded by that because how does the NBA get $7 billion when the ratings is regular? No one's watching regular season games. The ratings show that, and it's true. Mm-hmm. However, the way the NBA is going to get around it, I guess if that's a good way to phrase it, is they're going to offer it to NBC, and I'll get to those numbers, and Prime, and ultimately they're going to get the money through streaming.
Yeah.
That's and that's what it is. We have evolved to streaming. Remember we went from regular TV antenna, no cable, mm-hmm. and ESPN, and now we've evolved from really cable to streaming.
Yeah.
And that's what we have. And that's how the NBA is going to ultimately get the money they need.
Yeah, they're going to get it.
Is they're going to offer it to NBC and Prime, and I think ESPN has it. And look it up.
But I think they still have it.
They're going to keep some of it. But again, at the end of the day, that's basically what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, money always drives everything.
And that's what's going to drive that boat.
And that's what always drives the boat. Like, that's basically... Here it is. To kind of give you a rough idea here. They're going to, looks like they're going to go to, it looks like NBA is going to be a 24/7 basketball channel that includes live games, original shows, and studio. You can watch NBA TV, though, through. They've got Amazon Prime, then they got the NBA League Pass, and then the cable and satellite. But I know they were talking about, when we had last year, they were talking about Amazon getting the package and then NBC getting the NBA package and then streaming it through Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
They'll get the money.
It is.
They'll figure it out.
Right. And they're not cutting down 82 games.
No.
Because 82 games is people going and buying and parking. And that's the other thing. 82 games, you still look at Cleveland now. Cleveland's hot. They're playing great. Look at all the people going to you think the people in Cleveland, Ohio want less than, no, they love going to 82 games.
Yeah.
41 games home. They're no one's not going to the games in Cleveland because there's too many games.
Yeah, they're going. They're going. And they're winning. They're playing well.
Right.
I mean,
and people are buying the tickets and spending the money at the at the arena.
Right.
And they're spending on concessions and tickets. And
they did it the right way this time. I mean,
yes.
The first time LeBron left, it was
right.
But when he left this time, it wasn't in shambles. They were able to play pretty decent and then made these trades where they get Donovan Mitchell, they get all this. And I'm glad he re-signed. And man, they just built that team. And it's a very, very, that was a big win last night for them because they needed that confidence builder that, hey, we can beat these guys. Now can you beat them in a 7-game series? That's yet to be determined. But they showed they got what it takes to do so. So, that gives them that energy and confidence to think, hey, we could do this.
For those that did not know, the Cavaliers had a big win last night. They beat the Celtics quite convincingly, 123-116 in Boston. So Cavaliers are clearly the number 1 seed and will have the number 1 seed, looks like, through the playoffs. They will have that number 1 seed. Looks like OK City will have the number 1 seed out west. Mm-hmm. Then the gap, then the teams. And it looks like Boston will be clearly number 2. Then the Knicks are number 3. And then I believe after that, Indiana is, I believe, 4th behind the Knicks, which is interesting because Indiana's built a pretty good team. But the point on it is this, and you're getting back to the games. I know people scream they don't need to play 82 games, but when you have like a Cleveland or OK City, they'll go, when the teams are winning, even like a Detroit's playing very good young team, were bad last year, improved significantly. But the point is, the people are going to go to those games. The owners are not taking that off the table.
Right.
And the players aren't, because the players, if they play less games, the players get less money.
Right.
They're going to take it, they're going to reduce their contract.
Yeah.
So they're not, you see, the thing is the players may sit out and not play, but they're not playing less games, people. They're never going to go back to that. That's what I hear it now and then. I laugh.
Yeah, it's not going to happen
because you're not playing less than 82 games. It's the toothpaste is out, man. You ain't putting that in the tube again.
Yep.
You're never going to go back. And you look at years. They've been playing 82 games for almost 60 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
NBA.
It's never changed. Yeah, I didn't even realize. I knew it was way up there because all the time I've been watching it, it's been that many games. I mean, that I can remember. I mean, it might have been a little less. I had to be real young. I mean, because I know in the 70s it was still 82 games. And it's hard to even think about anything less than that. Maybe early 60s.
Okay. 67-68 was the first season the NBA started to play 82 games. Before that, it said, actually, this is kind of funny. The NBA increased the number of games from 80 to 81 in 66-67.
Okay.
Then when they added San Diego Rockets and the Seattle Supersonics joined the league in 67, they went to 82 games.
Okay. Because, see, I do remember that.
It's been over 50 years.
I remember 81. I remember that. It was 81 games.
It was.
And I kept saying, I must have been off. I kept telling myself for the longest, I must have thought it was 81. It was that long ago, though.
They were playing 80 games, though, for a long, long time.
So you think it's at this juncture of life, it's ever going to be reduced? You just hope it just stays there and we're not playing 100 games. Just hope it stays just like it is. They can't mess it up. Leave it just like it is. But it's definitely never going back. If we've been playing that long, the revenue now.
Saturday morning sports page back after a quick timeout. Halftime.
Youngstown, Warren, and Salem Sports Talk is on the iMedia One Network, Western Reserve Radio, Western Reserve Radio 2, and City View Sportscast.
Ina's Pierogi House is your home for the area's best variety of pierogies. Daily specials include the Polish platter, the Hungarian platter, stuffed cabbage, and halushki. Having a last-minute get-together? Lena's has you covered with a wide variety of frozen take-home pierogies and dumplings. Go to Facebook at Lena's Pierogi House to see the weekly lineup of available flavors for dine-in or carry-out. Catch the best at Lena's Monday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Tuesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 20 North Main Street in Hubbard or call 234-254-8532.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Catch all of the spring and summer action of Cleveland Cobras minor league football on Western Reserve Radio. Follow the Cobras as they compete against teams from around the region in pursuit of a Tri-Point Football League championship. And if you're looking to continue your football career after high school, college, or even the pros, or to be part of the Cobras staff, go to Facebook at Cleveland Cobras Football or contact owner Jesse Caldwell at 330-416-3442. Be a part of the excitement of Cleveland Cobras football.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Saturday morning sports page coming back at you. 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports. Dave Clark, I know sometimes we get going off a little bit of the range, sort of to speak, but it's just kind of like to think things through and talk about stuff just out there. One door opens up, leads to another conversation topic.
Yep.
Our show is a maze of doors. They open from the side you're on. Old Cat Stevens song, Sitting. But back in 1959-1960 season, and then we'll move on, but there were 8 teams in the NBA. We're going back 67 years ago. 65 years ago. Okay. They played back then 8 teams, 4 in the Eastern Division, 4 in the Western Division. They played 75 games then. And believe me, they didn't travel. They traveled by bus. They traveled by train. And if they flew anywhere, they were flying coach. They didn't have first class. I mean, they were not. And you had men of Chamberlain, Russell, of Elgin, Baylor. I'm just saying men of 6'7", Chamberlain 7'1", 7'2", Russell 6'10", 6'11", sitting in coach on an airplane.
Right.
They didn't have a lot of leg room back then.
Yeah,
poor Chamberlain and Russell had their knees in their chin. But my point on it is this. Those guys played 75 games, and they did a lot of traveling. And when Boston played Philly, I bet you 5-1 they took a bus or they did by train. They weren't or they went to the Knicks. They did not fly to New York. If Philly and Boston, they were taking a train or a bus or whatever the heck it was. Syracuse Nationals were there. They were in Syracuse, New York, obviously. They were not flying to Syracuse.
Right.
They were Philadelphia. You were getting on a bus and you were going to sit there, probably a charter bus, maybe, and you were going 6-7 hours in a bus. My whole point on it in the Western Division was St. Louis, Detroit, Minneapolis, the Cincinnati Royals. Minneapolis was as far west as they had back then. They had not moved to LA yet.
Right.
The Lakers were still in Minneapolis. That's where they started. But I'm just looking back at it now and I'd laugh is because these guys just, that's why we get into don't compare players from different eras. And it's so true. And you really can't even compare, did you hear what it was Channing Frye was talking about Jordan? You can't even compare LeBron to Jordan because of the eras they played in.
Yeah.
And, just the game. And he's right. I mean, I think I really see his point. It was like, you just can't, these players played in a different time. They played 75 games though, back then.
Yeah.
And the travel wasn't anything to write home about, and they weren't getting a lot of money. These guys were making $7,000 a year.
Right.
I mean, the point on it is but they played all those games back then. They're never going to go back and play 60 games. People, I hear they need to only play 60 games in the regular season. Stop it.
Yeah.
Nobody's playing 60 games in the NBA.
No.
I don't want to hear it.
No, it's never going. It'd be nice, but only time you got is when we had the strikes sorting.
That was a strike
and
year.
People was loving that.
They loved that.
Perfect. It was nice.
I liked it,
but it's not going to happen on no regular basis.
No,
they didn't want that.
No, they've been playing. They've been playing 82 games since 1967, 60. So do the quick math on that.
58 years.
That's 58 years. They've been playing 82 games for 58 years. They're not going to go back and say, yeah, let's start playing. They're not cutting 22 games off that schedule. I don't care.
No.
You're an owner. You have a team worth billions of dollars.
Can you imagine
how much money? How much money you get, especially when you have a team winning like Cleveland and OK City, where the fans are going to all those games.
All of them. And then it's good to mention both of them.
Right.
Cleveland is a big city, but it's still a small market.
Small market.
And both teams are in small markets.
Right.
But man, they sell out, both of them.
Right. They're like college teams.
Yeah.
The mentality of the fan, it's like a college team, and that those fans are going to those games.
Yep.
Like that game last night between Boston, it was in Boston. I'm sure they had a sellout crowd in Boston wanting to see Cleveland.
Yep.
And vice versa. If Boston's playing in Cleveland, anybody playing in Cleveland, they're probably going to come close to selling that out, or they're going to have close to 20,000 in that arena. I think it's the sellout is 20.
Yeah.
In that arena, it holds 20.
I mean, it's going to.
So they're going to get almost, and I keep going back to that's parking, that's concessions. People are spending money. That's buying the merchandising. That's selling. That's money. How much?
I mean, I've seen sweatshirts out there, $75 for a hoodie.
Right. For a hoodie.
$75.
And someone's buying it.
Oh, they're buying it.
And they're buying it.
Yeah.
And if somebody brings their family, they're going to buy a banner. They're going to buy a Cleveland Cavalier banner, a shirt, a hat.
Yeah. Oh, they're getting it.
And then they're going to buy the food and tickets. And they know, the owners know that the fans are showing up, and they're spending a lot of money to park.
Mm-hmm.
They're also spending a lot of money in the arena. And that's why they're never going to ever cut back on games.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why. I know they talk about it because it's good talk sports radio in their eyes, but it's stupid.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't learned anything in this whole we've talked about it hundreds of times. It's always about money.
And I remember it back when NFL was 14 games and they talked about the physicality and they'll never go more. Oh yeah, they're going, it's money. What you do, and the only way you can combat that is expand the roster, put more people on the roster in your practice squads so that it can eliminate a lot of injury by now you can rotate guys. And that's what they got to do. You just expand the roster so you can have more guys in different positions. And usually you can get somebody good enough that they can rotate in there and give guys breaks. This will take some of that load off of them. But now they're not going back. They're at 17 games now, and before we know it, it'll be 18 in the NFL.
To give you an idea, the NFL, we remember, they played 14 games from 1961 to 1977. They played 14 games. We remember quite well.
Right.
Before that, they played 12 games. Mm-hmm. I know that. I don't remember it because it was before my time.
Right, but I knew about that.
But when we were growing up, watching the NFL, it was 14 games.
All the time.
All the time. We watched every game.
Yep.
No matter, I listened back then, growing in New York, the Giants were blacked out. They had a blackout rule. All the home games, regardless of whether or not they were sold out, blacked out. Mm-hmm. Could not watch it in the local market. Listen to it on radio. I listened to a lot of games on radio.
Mm-hmm.
So all away games were on, but I was always parked in front of the TV. Every Giant game, away game, I was watching it on TV. Mm-hmm. Same thing with we had tickets to the Jets, so we went to the Jet games.
Right.
Whole point of this is from 61 to 77, the NFL played 14 games. From 1978, okay, so that would be basically, quick math, 47 years. Well, I should back it up. It was like when did they go to 17? They played from 78 to when they went to 17, which was 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like 44 years. They played 16 games. They've been playing 16 games since 1978. Then they went to 17 3 years ago, I believe.
Right.
So now they'll get to 18 pretty quick because
before 3, I'm sure
they're not going to. If I was a quote betting man, I would say that the NFL will get to the 18 games. Now, obviously, college football's already said they're expanding to playoff is to 14 teams in 2 years. So one more year, they keep it at 12, but then they're going to get to 14.
Mm-hmm.
What opened up this whole Pandora's box from the get-go was the NCAA tournament has not finalized expansion plans yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't made a decision yet. And the decision is unlikely soon. Dan Gavitt, who is the senior vice president of NCAA, senior vice president, had indicated they haven't finalized the expansion yet. But now there's talk about them increasing from 72 to 76 teams. So right now you have 72 teams, and they do that play-in tournament to get it down to 64.
Right.
And then ultimately they'll get to then they do the tournament. But the whole point of it is they're talking about upping it to 76 teams, and people are upset about it. But I'm just
for the NCAA tournament,
basketball tournament. They want to add 4 more teams to it.
Yeah. Well, you sure they're going to do it?
They will do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm convinced they're going to do it.
Right.
Only thing they're going to decide is when.
Yeah.
They're going to do it. Now, whether or not it's this year or the following year. But I think that if the college football, we know college football is getting to 14 teams because they've already come out and said that.
Mm-hmm.
So basketball is going to follow them. I just have a feeling they're going to say, well, if they're going to 14, we're going to go to 76.
Yeah.
It's like. Yeah.
And people, what it is, people be stuck in their traditions and they just can't.
No, there's no tradition anymore.
Yeah. Just forget about it. 64. I remember that. Yep. Oh, this is going to be crazy going to this playing. And they started doing it. And, this is not bad. This is okay.
Because, all right, I'll be the first one to admit, those play-in tournament games, I watch them. I think they're cool. Do. They're great games.
Yeah, they actually
Some of those games are really good.
Yep, they sure are.
So I really like watching that play-in tournament, which is like those 2 nights before the tournament starts Thursday. They do Tuesday. I believe it's Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yep, that's how they do
it. And the tournament starts Thursday.
Yep.
So the play-in is Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yep.
I watch those tournaments. Yeah. Those are great games to watch.
And the Tuesday winners play in the tournament on Thursday when it opens up.
Right. And then the Wednesday,
you have to watch those
Friday.
winners sometime too, because they go on a high and get an upset sometimes. We didn't see that happen.
Exactly. Well, one year Syracuse was in that play-in tournament, and I think they got to the Final Four that one year. Boeheim was in that play-in tournament one year, and they got a typical Syracuse. Boeheim always does that, where he would get his team. He got in that play-in tournament, and he has that 1-3-1 zone that he plays, and he got in the tournament, and he kind of got on a roll.
Yeah.
And I believe he got to the Final Four that year. Yeah. Lost, but he was in the play-in tournament.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. It's just anything can happen.
So that's what I mean. And that's the best part of it is you can't ever rule that out. And the other thing is they're doing it because people are watching it and they get TV ratings and can sell.
Yeah. I mean, I hear guys all the time, I hate this. Right. And then when the time comes, give me that remote. They go right to it. They turn it so fast.
They complain about it. Oh, this is terrible. But they're the first. They're the first ones to watch it.
Right. They're pushing us out the way to get to it.
Right. Yeah. They can't wait to get, but they complain it. Yeah. Oh, this is ruining the sport. That's what my favorite line is.
That's the stupidest thing.
My favorite line is it's ruining the sport.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the NFL goes to 18, what does that mean? Less people are not going to watch now because they're playing an 18-game schedule instead of 17? Or college football going from 12 to 14? That means less people are going to watch the games because they're expanding.
It is
and giving us more games that mean.
Yeah.
Because that was the complaint with college football is the games don't matter. These bowl games are stupid because they're nothing but exhibitions. They don't mean anything. Yeah. Okay, great. Now you're expanding the playoffs, so those games mean something. And people are watching them. You're going to stop watching because they're adding more teams?
No way. I remember the 14-game NFL season, and when it was that last week of the season, I know it was the playoffs coming. But it was such a downer. I'm getting depressed. Right. I watched the Super Bowl, and then it's just nothing. Right. So when they went to 16, people was doing cartwheels. They was loving it because it's longer.
It's longer.
And that's why they crave it. They hated it. And when they went to 17, you heard a little stuff. How long did that last? Not long at all. They was right into it. And they're going to be the same way at 18. Right. And that's why they want the UFL to be around. So it can just like soothe their craving until the NFL comes back. Man, please.
Right.
That stuff is so dumb. Right. What they be talking about. Why did they do that? But it is funny though. You're right. I like to listen to those quotes.
always love it's going to ruin the sport. That's my favorite line.
I done heard in every sport.
Ruining the sport.
Yep.
You can't have all these games. You can't have all these college football playoff teams. You can't have that many teams. It's going to ruin the sport.
Right.
Okay. So you mean to tell me you're going to open it up and those bowl games now really mean something?
Yeah.
And people are, okay, so people are going to stop watching and Ohio State fans now get in the tournament. They're not going to go to the games because it's 12 teams or it's going to go to 14. Oh, I'm not going to the games anymore because they just expanded. I'm going to ruin the sport. I'm not going to the games. Yeah, like it's NFL. This is the part that blows me away. That's why they're never going back. Baseball still wants 162 games. They complain. They always go up against football in the fall. They've been doing it for years. They get beat in the ratings, but they're not changing. They're not cutting back games in no sport. NFL, NBA, and I know we talk more baseball, basketball because they play 162 baseball, 82 NBA. They talk about, well, there's too many games. But we just talked. Cleveland Cavalier fans, they're not going to go to the game if it's too many games.
Right.
They're going to go.
Yeah.
People are going to roll to Cleveland, OK City, and some of the other Detroit, some of those hardcore teams, LA, they're going to the games. They're watching LeBron. They're watching Luca. And nobody's complaining they're playing too many games.
So you say just like 1955, NBA was playing 75 games back then, probably, right?
Yeah.
So that's 75 years ago.
Yes.
So we're going to change. They actually went up 7 games since 70 years ago. There's no way it's going back. You've been like this for 70 years. 75 or more games. How are they going to go back?
Here. All right. 1956, 1957. I pulled up the NBA season then. Okay. You had 8 teams, as you did, in 59, 60. They played back then, which is now basically not quite 70 years ago, but close to 70 years, 68 years. They played 72 games. So they were playing 72 games. And just to see, just out of curiosity, what did the landscape look like? This Eastern Division 4 teams, the Celtics, the Syracuse Nationals, Philadelphia Warriors, New York Knicks. The Western Division was the St. Louis Hawks, Minneapolis Lakers, Fort Wayne Pistons, Rochester Royals. That was the face of the NBA almost 70 years ago. They were playing 72 games then. You think they're going to go play 60? They're going to reduce the season to 60 games now? Are you kidding me?
With all the money.
With all the money.
All the flights, how they can take care of their body. These guys were, as our friend said, plumbers and everything else. These guys didn't have the training facilities back then.
And they had other jobs in the off season.
Yeah.
These guys back in the 50s were probably making, I could look it up, but I know this average salary was like $5,000.
Right.
They were working other jobs in the off season.
Yeah. And some of them had to work doing different things during the season. I read before. Yeah. So, I mean, with all the money and all the advantages they got today, you think they're going back?
No.
If anything, they'll go up. You just better hope to just stay at 82.
Right.
And be happy. Right. Because they're not going back.
Do you think when they talk about reducing NBA games from 82 to 60, when they go to the players union and say, okay, you can't make 60 million, LeBron. You're going to make 50 million because we got to lop off a certain percentage. Yeah, right. You're going to go to a player and say you're making 50, and that's what they're making too.
Yeah, and none of them are going to say, even your mid-range guys, making 14 million, somebody like that.
Right. You go to the mid-range guy because I think the average NBA salary is 15 million.
Yep. Now that's the average. They don't want that.
No.
Because now you're talking about they're making 8 million.
Right.
I'm not making 8 million.
No.
My average salary.
No, you're not lopping a few million off my salary.
No. And see that in the way the game is today, the pro game, they really don't have, they don't have to work extra jobs because they make so much money. But technically, they couldn't do another job because every season is 365 days. There's no off season that you really don't do. Yeah, they may go on a vacation for a few weeks, but then they know they got to get into training. They got to do this and that, get that butt. Because if they get back, certain part of their contracts are avoided because they're not in shape, different things. They lose money. They don't want to lose money, so they got to continue to work.
Here, let me give you an idea. Average NBA salary for the record is $11.9 million. Okay. Curry, highest paid players in the NBA. Stephon Curry makes $55 million.
Okay.
The Joker makes $51 million. Embiid makes $51 million. Kevin Durant makes $51 million. Bradley Beal makes $50 million. $50 million a year these guys are making. Now, to me, the NBA salaries are just crazy through the roof. Yeah. But the whole point of it is, if you go to these guys and you start lopping off games, say you're talking 25%. If you want to reduce it to 60 games, that's roughly, say, 25%. Mm-hmm. A little bit more than that. I could do quick math, but you're going to take 25% of Stephen Curry's salary away from him. You're going to say,
like 14, 15
Joker,
million.
Stefan, you're going to make
40 now.
You're making $40 million. Joker, you'll make 40. Embiid, you guys are only going to make 40 million. I know, only 40. You're not making your 55, 51 million. You're going to make it 40.
Yeah. And Embiid and Joker will be, I don't know if you said they were 51. I know you said Embiid was somewhere in there.
Yeah, 51.
Now, he's going to be in the 30-something million.
Right.
When you lop off 25%.
Right.
They ain't doing that.
Right.
There's no way they're doing that.
No.
That's at least 13 million off. So that's 38. You're down to 38 million.
Right.
And the famous words of Patrick Ewing, I need my money or we're going to starve.
Well, Patrick Ewing said, you don't understand. We make a lot of money, but we spend a lot of money.
But it is true.
It's true.
Yeah.
Bottom line, you could criticize, I know we get into the whole thing about, how the NBA, pro athletes are broke at the end of the career. They don't manage their money. We can all do.
I know that happens. It definitely
happens a lot, especially with the football players, I believe are the ones that lose their money because their money is all through, the contracts are year to year pretty much in the NFL. But baseball and basketball players have the best contract because all the money's guaranteed.
Right.
And if they sign the contract, you owe it.
Yeah.
Now they got a buyout clause, but they still get all the money.
Mm-hmm.
They work all the cap crap out, but the players still get the money.
Right. Right.
They all should, to me, all athletes, they won't, but they should basically thank Curt Flood.
Well, yeah.
He was the one that got this whole thing started.
Yeah. There's no question
Curt
about it.
Flood
He went
started.
through a ringer, buddy.
He ruined his career.
Yep.
And he didn't make a lot of money, but he really forced the issue. He was pushing it hard. He lost in court, but he kept pushing the free agent thing down their throat. Marvin Miller, a genius who represented the Major League Baseball players, who was just a hardcore negotiator and a tough guy. Baseball owners probably hate him to this day,
right?
But he was the driving force, and Curt Flood
lost his career.
His career was shot.
And people probably say, he wasn't any good.
No, he was. Sorry. Curt Flood was a good. He was a very good baseman. Very good.
Yeah. Oakland A's and a couple
and
other
then the
places.
Cardinals.
And the Cardinals, right.
Curt Flood was a good baseball player. Rest in peace, Curt Flood. He passed at 60. He was only 59 when he passed. But
all that stress.
Probably.
I wouldn't doubt that he went through a lot. He did go through. Probably he did go through a lot of stress.
He joined the Cardinals in 58.
Death threats. He had everything.
Yeah, he had everything thrown at him known to mankind. But Curt Flood is they should put him in the Hall of Fame. They won't, but they should.
Yeah. Just
to the fact that he was a good enough baseball player, but what he did to the sport
changed,
and how he totally changed this. He basically, because this back in 1969, Curt Flood refused to trade and appealed to the Supreme Court, which I believe he lost, but they kept it up, and ultimately that led to the Curt Flood Act of 1998. Curt Flood's fight changed baseball economics. And it was Curt Flood who all these athletes should thank Curt Flood.
Bow down.
Because they should bow down, take a knee, and maybe a quick prayer to Curt Flood, because Curt Flood was the person that started this whole mess.
Yep.
But it was a good mess for the players.
Yep.
Because back then, the players had no leeway in their contracts.
Right.
They were basically, property. They were owned. I mean, Why do you think the White Sox threw the 19? I know I'm really going off rails here, but the 1919 World Series was thrown because of the Comiskey was so cheap with the players. They got so mad at him, they threw the World Series.
Yeah.
So bottom line is, though, but these players, all the players in all the sports were always held. I mean, you make the argument. The Boston Celtics had great teams in the 60s. Mm-hmm. But they had but Red Auerbach didn't have to worry about free agency.
That's right.
Bill Russell wasn't going anywhere. Sam Jones, Casey Jones, all those great players of those Celtic teams that were just all, to my eyes, that whole team was a Hall of Fame team. Those players were going nowhere year in and year out. He could wake up and know, I have Bill Russell, Casey Jones, Sam Jones as my two guards. I had Satch Sanders and Havlicek playing for me every year. I didn't have to worry about Hondo or Russell going to be a free agent somewhere.
Right. Yep.
I could roll those guys out every year and not pay them anything because, I mean, I think Sam Jones at his career height was making $15,000.
Right. Yeah.
And he was one of the best shooters, best pure shooters in basketball. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying it was so different back then. They didn't have to worry about any free agency.
No. Show up with your guys.
That's it. Roll them out.
Yep.
Saturday Morning Sports Page. Back after a quick timeout.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
Meet Josh.
Hi, everybody.
Josh is a high school basketball player, solid shooter, great teammate.
Hey, don't forget my tenacious D.
And he's my son.
Oh.
So, what does Josh do to be the best basketball player he can be?
I play tennis.
Studies show that student athletes here in Ohio who play more than one high school sport are more likely to excel. Tennis does more than improve Josh's conditioning. It gives him a fresh competitive outlet, reduces the risk of injury by cross-training, and introduces him to different coaching techniques and new friends.
Don't get me wrong, hoops are my first love. Tennis just gives me a little break.
So when the new season begins, Josh isn't burned out on basketball. He's eager to play. And you can see the difference in his game.
This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Saturday Morning Sports Page, Pat Lucia, Dave Clark. 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports. We do it every Saturday morning here. Here is Western Reserve Radio. Yeah, Dave Clark, because, we were kind of talking going back through some old times, but the thing with, like, I understand because of when we grew up, sports we watched, the players, the way the landscape was then, but like the players were really tied to the team.
Mm-hmm.
The only way they could move, as you said, they traded.
Yeah.
Jabbar worked his way to LA because he wanted to trade. Milwaukee gave it to him.
Mm-hmm.
You bring all those teams, all those players, it was all trading. No one had free agency.
No.
Nobody could wait and sit and go and sign with another team.
Right.
And like you said, Bird never did. Why would he want to leave? Why would Magic leave the Lakers? Why would Bird leave the Celtics? You were loaded. The teams were great.
Right.
Magic wasn't leaving Jabbar, and Jabbar wasn't leaving Magic, and Worthy wasn't leaving that team. I don't blame them.
No. Wow.
Same thing with the Celtics. You had great McHale and Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson. Why would you leave that team?
Right.
Same thing like when Barkley came into the NBA, he was with the 76ers, and he had one of the, they just had come off the championship, the 83 championship, where some people believe the 83 76ers rate as one of the greatest teams ever to play, along with the 71-72 Lakers and the 66-67 76ers. Both those teams had Chamberlain on them.
Right. Yep.
But some people believe those teams are the greatest. And there's a couple Celtic teams in there that people argue they were the best team. You get into these great arguments, who's the best team of all time. You could argue this between, it's great talk sports radio for us because, there's no wrong or right answer here, people, But some people believe that 83 76er team with Malone and Maurice Cheeks, Bobby Jones, was one of the best teams ever. They blew through the playoffs, swept everybody. Now, Magic, evidently, they swept the Lakers 4-0, but the Lakers had injuries.
Right.
People believe that if the Lakers were healthy, that would have been really a competitive game series. But due to the injuries, the Lakers could not compete with Moses Malone and that 76er team.
They had no chance.
They had no chance.
Right.
And Dr. J was obviously on that team and led that team. But the point is, now the 76ers would disagree with that, and deservedly so. They were by far the best team. But the point is, when you go back in time, the free agency was not in the mix, and Curt Flood was the one that really brought this up and got it to Supreme and lost. But they kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing, and ultimately got the arbitrator to approve it. That's how this got. They kept the foot on the pedal.
Yep.
They never let go. The players never let go. And ultimately it was baseball where the arbitrator ruled. And that opened up the floodgates to free agency back in the it was, I believe, in the 70s. Yeah, it was the 70s. And that started the whole gambit. And then ultimately the players were able to fight and get free agency. Now with the way the contracts are structured in all these, they can all become free agents.
Yeah. And people don't understand, yes, this guy was a baseball player, and it started with baseball.
That's where it started.
But it trickled over to the other sports for free agency.
Right.
Every one of them had to change things because of that, because they didn't want to face that lawsuit.
Right. Because Curt Flood started this.
Yes.
He was the one that started it in 1969. Was a great... not maybe a great, but a really good baseball player. Bob Gibson basically said he credited Curt Flood with, he goes, all my pitches, the pitches that the guys hit long, and Curt Flood ran them down. He was a center fielder. He caught all those balls.
Yeah.
He goes, all the mistakes I made should have been triples and doubles, and off the wall, Curt Flood ran those down and caught those balls. Because he was a speed demon when it came. He was an unbelievable outfielder.
Yep.
He had, he was like Jets.
Yeah.
He could go catch the ball, but he started this. And that's why Curt Flood started now maybe one would argue that ultimately we would have gone down that road somewhere down in history, but
it may be so, but he pushed that agenda
Curt
early.
Flood started it very early back in the late 60s when he started pushing it to the Supreme Court in 1969. And unfortunately, he's not in the Hall of Fame. There is a movement out there to get him inducted. They should put him in. The Veterans Committee should get on this right away. Put Albert Bell and Kurt Flood in the Hall of Fame because Albert Bell won't be in the Hall of Fame because the writers didn't like him.
Yeah.
You look at Albert Bell's numbers, he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's just, that's why it's a joke.
It is. That's why I don't like to get into a lot of arguments with the Hall of Fame stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's so many players that really belong in
and they're not.
And they're not in, and they belong in, and a lot of it's maybe politics.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. But Albert Bell belongs in the Hall of Fame. If you look at his numbers, they're absolutely through the charts.
Right.
And you look at what they refer as the dark type he's got dark type all in his numbers. That's like leading the league, dark type. Albert Bell was basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's just insane that he's not
insane and he's not in, and he won't be in.
No.
Because he wasn't well liked with the press. I know he was surly and he, whatever. But on the field, that man was one of the best baseball players ever.
And that's what they need to look at. But they don't. And that happens in other sports too.
They should put Kurt Flood in. Here's the other thing. And his career was 1956 to really 1969. And then he played a year with the Senators in 71. But he had he had batted 293, 85 homers, 636, 636 RBIs. But they should put him in basically because of his impact. He was a good baseball player too. It wasn't like he was batting 220.
Right.
Had good baseball numbers, but what he did for free agency and the whole sport, they should put him in for the impact he had on baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they will one day. It'd be nice to see in my lifetime, but I don't know if it happened. I get upset with all the I go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame all the time, but just a lot of it I get upset. I remember the not wanting to put TL in. I remember the controversy of even putting LT in. Oh, I don't know if he should go in first ballot because, he had the drug use. Well, you know what? That guy was better than more than half the NFL linebackers. Even if he didn't practice and was high, he was better than more than half of the NFL. And even that, he was still completely dominating. Completely. You could not block LT. That's why they used to design stuff in Washington with Joe Jacoby and the tight end, and then somebody chipping from the backfield, and sometimes still didn't stop him.
Nope.
But they didn't want him in. They didn't want him in because I don't know. Another guy that people didn't like, I thought he was very good, well, above good as a linebacker, was Wilbur Marshall. But he was a guy that didn't talk a lot with he didn't like how the press do things. And you don't even hear anything about Wilbur Marshall. But he was a dominant force on the Bears. And when he went to the Redskins, he changed their defense.
Changed 180%.
But you don't hear anything about him. How in the heck is our guy in Cleveland not there? Clay Matthews.
Yeah, Clay Matthews.
How in the world? I'll argue this. If the other linebacker on the outside didn't have some injuries, they were the best I ever seen, one of the best, with him and Chip Banks.
See, here's the problem I have. Some people say, I hear this a lot, well, they weren't all pro. But I said, yeah, but you have to look at their competition for all pro.
Right.
They had some really great linebackers they were competing. And that's, again, all pro is being voted on too. So that's up for discussion.
That's absolutely
But they said, well, Clay Matthews didn't have that many all pros seasons. I said, yeah, but he was a great linebacker and he was competing against great linebackers for the quote all pro. But he wasn't like some guy, he had all the tackles and he played all those years. So I said, it's not fair to say, well, they didn't have enough all pro selections, therefore they're not in the Hall of Fame because no, but you have to look at their competition, their years they played, and all the guys that were great Hall of Fame linebackers that they got, were outvoted.
Right.
They were outvoted by the other all. So and it's a fine line here, people, between, I could argue between, well, this guy's a all pro, this guy's not. Well, yeah, but you could make the argument Clay Matthews could have been an all pro, but he didn't get the votes because, again, the committee didn't vote him in. But that's the whole point of it, is look at his body of work all the years and how great he was. This has been I got to read.
It just gets on my nerves, seriously.
Since we're on this roll, I'm just going to read this letter real quick. Kurt Flood wrote this letter.
Okay.
December 24th of 1969. Dear Mr. Kuhn, Bowie Kuhn was the commissioner.
Yep.
After 12 years in the major leagues, I do not feel that I am a piece of property to be bought and sold, which is irrespectful of my wishes. I believe that any system which produces that result violates my basic right as a citizen and is inconsistent with the laws of the United States of America, of the several states. Okay. It is my desire to play baseball in 1970, and I am capable of playing. I received a contract offer from Philadelphia club, but I believe I have the right to consider offers from other clubs before making any decisions. I therefore request that you make known to all the major league clubs my feelings in this matter and advise them of my availability for the 1970 season. Carbon copy, Mr. Marvin Miller and Mr. John Quinn. I don't know who Mr. John Quinn was, maybe his attorney. But the point is, that's what the letter that he challenged the reserve clause back in 1969. He wrote that letter to Bowie Kuhn. And obviously...
Well, because they moved him around like chess pieces.
Yeah.
What they wanted. And to a certain extent, if you look at it, we don't really want to go down this path, but you look at it, it is like slavery.
It was. I mean,
your piece of meat. You go here where I say you go. You don't go where you may feel is good, best for you. You go where I say it's best for you.
That's basically what Kurt Flood likened the reserve clauses to slavery. I don't know if I think it's more restraint of trade.
Right.
But okay, I'm not sure about the slavery thing, but I go for restraint of trade with that. But hey.
But see, at that, when you look at that time, it was looked that way because of the atmosphere.
Yes, it was.
That was going on at
As
that time.
we talked to, and again, this goes back to the late 60s in the country.
Right.
We talked about it last week with the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in April of 68, and then the assassination of Bobby Kennedy in June of 68. This was back in 1969.
It's all in that time.
Yes, that time frame, the atmosphere in the country and what it was. I mean, the reality was back then is players, there were back in the earlier, but not in the mid 60s, players could not stay black players couldn't stay in the same hotels in the South. They had to stay in different hotels. They couldn't stay in the white hotels.
Right.
And there was this thing where back, I think it was the year, I think it was 62 or 63, that the Celtics were playing in Kentucky, an exhibition game, and they told the black players, you can't stay at the hotel with the white players. And then that was Russell and they left. They bolted. They wouldn't play in the game.
Okay.
Which who could basically blame them?
Right. On that.
So, okay. I think we have a caller.
Yep.
That's a ring. We're not used to that. You're on the Saturday Morning Sports Page. What's up?
Good morning, gentlemen. How we doing?
Hey, good, Irish Mike. Good. We're going down history lane here today.
Always.
Yeah.
Something this week, guys, I didn't know. Obviously, about a month or so, Myles Garrett came out and demanded a trade from the Browns.
Yes.
But I was just listening to Jason Lloyd, who covers the Browns. I did not know this. I knew he had 2 years left on his contract, and he does not want to sign a contract extension.
Right.
But, his agent is LeBron's agent, Ron Paul. And so the other thing I did not realize, guys, is the Browns also have him for 2 years to put a franchise tag on him, too, as well. So according to Jason Lloyd, it's not really a 2-year contract. It's a 4-year contract because they can tag him for 2 years as well. So, I mean, where does that – I mean, obviously someone's got to blink in all this. I mean, the Browns can hold out and say, hey, if you want to play for us, then you're not going to get paid. So you can sit on the sideline, but we ain't trading you. He seems to think the only way the Browns can pull this off, guys, is if the fact that they want to trade him to better the Cleveland Browns organization. You know what I mean? They get players and or draft picks or both to say we could really sell this to the public, that we're selling a guy who's been in Cleveland 8 years, is going on the 9th year, and he's frustrated, but they have to sell it. We're trying to improve the Cleveland Browns in 2025 and moving forward. we're not doing this just for the fact of, he wants out of town.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to, I guess they have to make a decision. I guess they could do what you just said, tag him and keep him there, kind of, even though against his wishes. Or can they get to, people are arguing, well, what would you get in the open market on a trade for him?
Right.
And I guess that's the question is, if you're a Cleveland Brown fan and you can get 2 first-rounders, would you consider it?
Yeah.
Make up for the hole that you lost with Deshaun Watson when you gave the farm to Houston to get Deshaun Watson, and you've built the Houston playoff to you made Houston a playoff team to some extent because of the capital you gave them in the Deshaun Watson trade. So do you try to turn around and get that for Garrett?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yep.
So I think that's what I know they've said they're not trading him, and I think that I'm not surprised that Barrett said that.
No.
The GM.
Yeah.
Because he's basically saying we're not trading him, but and I know he's talking on the phone. Teams are calling him anyway. He's not going to tell you that.
No.
And
can't put that out.
He's not putting that out there. He doesn't want people to know. He doesn't want the press to know they're shopping him. But you and I know his phone is ringing, and you and I know there are teams calling him saying, what do you want for him? And he might say, well, we're not trading him. Well, how about if we gave you 2 first-rounders and a second-rounder and a third-rounder? Would you, you and I know how it works with all these GMs and, what goes on. And agents. The agents are basically calling, they're involved here. Everybody's involved with the teams, this interaction between these teams, not maybe the agents, but the GMs are calling because they all do a lot of it by, call, nothing's written down. And they're all, what do you want? Would you think? How about, do you want a player on our roster? So I think a lot of that's going on. And I think there's a lot of teams, not a lot, but I think there's certain teams really want him.
Oh, yeah.
Like Washington. And Washington has a lot of cap space.
Yep.
And I think that's where, as a Cleveland Brown fan, you might be forced or be considering, do you want to trade him because of the fact that you want the draft capital? And then you got the quarterback situation where what are the Browns going to do with quarterback this year? Are they going to draft? They got the second pick. Do they take a Shedeur Sanders? They don't. I don't know how, but I got to look at. They don't have a lot of cap space. The Browns. They don't have it. But the point is, that might be their way around Watson, is they get the rookie quarterback and maybe do what Denver did, is hit like Bo Nix.
Yeah, I forgot the date in March. They got to do something, but he could do some things, Barry, with the different contracts, spreading things out, changing around to create even more cap space for him. So you better believe that he's doing it.
You talk about pass rushers, Myles Garrett, one of the worst kept secrets in the NFL, that the Los Angeles Chargers are going to cut Joey Bosa.
Right.
Or one of the teams rumored, the Buffalo Bills. I mean, and obviously, you look at that, you hear the name, and, compared to Myles Garrett, though, Bosa just finished his 9th year in the NFL, and Garrett just finished his 8th. But, the one thing that would scare me about Joey Bosa more than anything is the guy's always hurt.
Yeah.
Always. Right? I mean, always.
See, I wouldn't touch him.
Yeah. I'll take him as a free agent off, a guy that I can pick up. If he get released or something, I'll get him. But as far as trading him and putting some value to, it's too hard because he's injured too much.
Yeah, I think the Chargers, David, just going to release him. So he'll be a free agent. And I don't know how the contracts work, but the rumored team that's very interested is the Buffalo Bills, because Von Miller's not coming back. And let's face it, Von Miller's a name that isn't the same Von Miller's 5-6 years ago. That's just reality. And I think Joey Bosa kind of falls under the same category. You're getting a named player in quotations that I think his better days of productivity are way behind him, because his whole career, the last 5 or 6 years, has been one injury after another injury.
Yep.
Right now, the Browns are they're in the hole, $22 million in the hole on the cap.
Yeah. They said, I read something, he could do all kind of things, create a lot of cap, but it's got to be more. I forgot the date in March.
Right.
He could do some things and spread money.
Like March 10th or March 17th. There's that special day.
Yeah. Once he does that, believe me, he'll do because he doesn't show some creative ways of how to make some cap space. So he'll do it because they got to use some.
To.
Yeah,
they don't have any choice. Buffalo Bills are the next team. They're minus 10 in the hole. The Bills are in cap hell. The team that's in the ultimate cap hell are the Saints at $47 million. The Browns are right behind them at minus $22 million.
Yeah.
So the Browns are they're in cap hell. The Chiefs are minus 17. The Bills are minus 10. So those teams are all in cap hell. I don't know. And they talk about him going to the Bills, but then again, the Bills would have they have to get real creative at how to make room for him. And then they got to sign him. Any place he goes, he wants a contract.
Yeah. And those are the teams he wants to go to.
Right.
Like that, to have a chance of winning. And I keep reading, and it's showing that the Eagles will go after him. I don't know how they're going to do it. They got money.
They got $22 million in it.
And they can create some more.
Right.
But if you could get... That'd be just crazy. They put him on.
If you put him on the Eagles, and don't laugh, they might win the next 2 or 3 Super Bowls in a row.
Easy. Yeah,
They're the favorite to win again next year. They have.
Could you imagine that?
That's insane.
If he got to be on the Eagles on that team,
because see, you can't double team him because then Jalen Carter would be 1-on-1.
You can't.
You double team Jalen Carter. You got him.
Right.
That's insane.
You can't. If Myles Garrett ends up in an Eagle uniform, I don't know what an offensive coordinator, they would be up all night because he would be nightmares for an offensive coordinator. Because you could not could you imagine Myles Garrett and you could kind of cut him, platoon him in with those, you could rest one of those guys and like rotate him out. Are you kidding? Jalen Carter and him, what would you do?
Yeah, I don't.
You can't you can't block Myles Garrett.
Yeah, and I can see him doing it. If Roseman can get in there, he's going to do it.
If there's any guy that could do it, it's him.
Yeah, and he will do it too because he always looks to create more and more havoc for the rest of the league. He just does.
Yeah.
And I think from the Browns' perspective, as Browns fans, they feel like if you trade Myles Garrett, I think obviously they don't want to do it, but they understand where you're coming from because he asked for it. But they also want to, and I know you can't have your cake and eat it too sometimes, guys. You want to have, if you get those draft picks, especially first-round draft picks, you want those picks to be as high as possible. If you're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward, it's going to be, in a late first round. Right?
Yeah, right. And that's the other problem. The problem you have running into is you want to trade him to a team, like you said, with a high pick. Or the only way you do it is you get the third team involved.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah, you can kind of do it, but you can't do it one-on-one. You get a third team, and that's where you get the draft picks. Like they have to give.
But like he's talking about, they want a high draft pick. Well, that means the team must not be that good, basically.
Right.
You could get a good team that's up there from past trades. They got some high picks, but most times if they're picking early, it's because they're a bad team. And he don't want to go to a bad. He wants a chance to win. He's got to go to a team like that.
A playoff.
Yeah, he's got to go to a Chiefs, Eagles, or Buffalo.
He knows that's a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
ring.
you got to go to those type teams.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go to the Giants.
I can see him going to the Vikings or any of that.
Well, the Rams have $44 million.
That's another team I can see him going to. Those type of teams, they got an opportunity to get there.
Right. And then the Broncos are $41 million.
That's another team,
potential team.
Yeah, they're potential.
So, you have teams up there. The Commanders is the best because they have $81 million in cap space,
and that's a team too. You know who a sleeper guy? Jim Harbaugh, who he could lose
the Chargers.
He'll figure out a way. They'll talk and figure. If they can get Myles Garrett, they'll take him.
The Chargers are $66 million in cap. They have the cap space. The Cardinals have cap space 78, but the Chargers would be a great team for him to go to because that's right up Harbaugh's alley.
And he still would have Khalil Mack.
And he have Khalil Mack on the other side. Although rumor is Khalil Mack may retire, but we don't know that. But don't be surprised he doesn't end up maybe with the Chargers. Potentially.
That's what I'm looking at. He wants to go to a team that he can see.
And who's the big lineman coming out from Michigan? The defensive tackle everybody loves. Yeah.
Mason Graham?
Don't be surprised if the Chargers don't somehow wield.
Well, I see them even drafting him or the other guy, Grant. The other tackle from Michigan. I can see him getting one of his guys.
Getting one of the. That's what I would.
Both of them are good.
If they don't go somewhere else in the draft, but don't be surprised if he doesn't end up, one of those tackles end up with Harbaugh at the Chargers. Yeah. So that's the other thing out there.
Yeah, connecting the dots is something you can do in sports for sure.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just by the record, and that the Celtic boycott, I know we're going back, but we're on a roll here. That was basically back in 1961. And the 5 players for Celtics, 5 black players, Sam Jones, Satch Sanders, went into a coffee shop and they would not serve them. This was in Lexington, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And that's when they left, which you don't blame them.
Yeah.
See, Irish Mike, this is something you're the history.
Yeah.
This is something you can kick back. Yes. Oh, geez. All right, Irish Mike.
I attended a History Day fair yesterday, and a young man had the sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina.
That's right.
Yep.
That's exactly right. Thanks for the call, Irish Mike.
Okay, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
We're out of time. It went fast.
Oh, it go fast.
Stay safe. We were everywhere. All over. Saturday Morning Sports Page back. Be safe. Do not drink. Do not drive. Stay sober and buckle up.
To the stations that are always ahead of the game. Western Reserve Radio, Western Reserve Radio 2, and City View Sportscast. Youngstown, Ohio.
Network. Coming up on the next Follow the Money, a lot of college hoops talk and NBA as well. Plenty of college hoops teams now, regular season done. We'll look at the brackets and championship week with the Hall of Famer Nick Bogdanovich here at Circa as well, and recap a wild weekend in the NFL. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and now Sirius XM Channel 158. Get the VSiN Watch app. This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line with host Tim Murray on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hour 2 of the VSiN Weekend Morning Line. A busy day when it comes to college basketball. Another loaded SEC slate. Busy in the Big 12 National Player of the Year award ramifications. So a fun time, as it always is. And we're going to continue to give you the best bets that have been handed out courtesy of the Circa College Hoops Challenge. This is week number 3. Through the first 2 weeks, 82, 61, and 2 is our record. So hopefully we can continue the momentum rolling along here. We just heard from Paul Stone. Let's recap his best bets just real quickly. His best bet is Vanderbilt +3. He's on South Carolina -1 at Arkansas, North Carolina A&T +10 at Hofstra. And then, boy, did he beat the closing number on these 2 games. Portland State for the contest is a pick'em versus Montana. They're now a 3-point favorite. And then Youngstown State, Northern Kentucky, over 141 for the contest. That is now out to 144. We're going to talk a little football. The big news yesterday regarding Matthew Stafford and what ripple effects that leads to the other teams out there looking for a quarterback. But before we get there, let's give you another contestant here in the Circa College Hoops Challenge. And let's go to Aaron Moore, the professor. Aaron Moore, 7-3, 7.5 points. He's 1-1 on his best bets. And he's got some unique ones that I don't believe are common plays. So let's run through Aaron Moore's plays here coming into today, 7-3. His best bet, he's going with the Billikens of St. Louis. He's going to lay the 2.5 against the Ramblers of Loyola Chicago. So that is his best bet. He's going to lay the number. And right now, good closing line value. That number has indeed moved out to 2.5 for Aaron Moore. Next bet for him, he's going Tennessee Tech at home against Lindenwood. No real movement in the market here. He laid the 4.5 with Tennessee Tech. He's going to go to UTEP El Paso. UTEP is in El Paso. University of Texas in El Paso. That came out kind of awkward. Middle Tennessee State is the opposition for UTEP, and UTEP now out to a 1.5-point favorite for the contest. It is sitting at 1. Another home dog situation. He's going with Seattle against the Antelopes of Grand Canyon. Good closing line value here. Hopefully it means he's on the right side of it. Seattle +3 for the contest. This number has moved down to 1. And lastly, for Aaron Moore, the professor, who is 7-3 on the year, 7.5 points, 1-1 on his best bets. He's going Sam Houston State. He laid the 2 in the contest. Still can grab 2s out there, but the market moving in his direction with the Bearcats with a K out to 2.5 against Louisiana Tech. So to recap, Aaron Moore's plays: St. Louis laying 2.5 against Loyola Chicago, his best bet. Tennessee Tech -4.5, UTEP -1, Seattle +3, good CLV there as the market has moved that down to 1, and Sam Houston State, the Bearcats with a K, laying 2 against Louisiana Tech. We'll continue to rifle through all of our selections. We'll go behind the counter. Thomas Gable from the Borgata in Atlantic City will get his thoughts on a busy day of college basketball. It is worth noting, I just saw a tweet come out from John Ewing over at BetMGM. The most popular play of the day at BetMGM, Maryland. Maryland coming off of the heartbreaking, gut-wrenching loss against Michigan State, where I don't know if you saw the video of me reacting when Matty Cox from the three-man weave was on our program, VSiN Primetime, when the half-court shot was hit. So Maryland is actually the most popular play in college basketball today at BetMGM. Over at our betting splits at vsin.com, utilizing DraftKings data, 80% of the bets. 84% of the bets on Maryland, 80% of the bets on Maryland at DK, 84 at BetMGM. So very popular play. The Terps laying the short number against Penn State. Makes you think. The Terps have had some bad luck, man. Their last 3 losses: overtime loss against Northwestern, a bucket score with less than a second to play, lost at Ohio State on a banked-in 3, and then losing a game on a, 70-footer from Michigan State, 58-55. More college hoops coming up here in just a little bit with Thomas Gable from the Borgata as we go behind the counter, see where the action is coming in, and see his thoughts on this card as well. But yesterday, the big news coming out from the NFL Combine actually had nothing to do with anyone that was going through the workouts in Indianapolis. It was the Matthew Stafford saga and what and where he would ultimately end up. Well, seems like he's going to be staying in Los Angeles as news started to circulate that it would indeed be the Los Angeles Rams who would hold on to Matthew Stafford. Adam Schefter of ESPN discussing the Stafford and Rams marriage staying together yesterday on ESPN.
And I think everybody was waiting to see what would happen with this particular situation and how the Matthew Stafford situation played out. Now that he's back with the Rams, other teams can do what they need.
All right, so we will get you the full video here in just a moment of that one, but not a big surprise that Matthew Stafford ultimately is going to stay in Los Angeles. And I'm going to reference John Ewing again over at BetMGM, and you might be wondering, what does this do to the betting market? Nothing, because the betting market was anticipating Matthew Stafford to stay in Los Angeles. So they were 25-1 to win the Super Bowl prior to the news, and they remain 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, if he had departed, if he had gone to Las Vegas, if he had gone to the Giants, who reportedly were very interested in bringing in his services, those odds would have shifted significantly. But the Los Angeles Rams do the right thing, in my opinion. The best thing for them moving forward was to hold on to Matthew Stafford, and that leads to the unique kind of trickle-down effect. Where are these other quarterbacks going to go? This was the first domino to fall. Would he ultimately go to a place like Las Vegas after, he just randomly bumped into Tom Brady while he was hitting the slopes there in Montana? We all have that problem. I know you do as well. You're just out hitting the slopes up in Montana. And, Tom Brady, what are you doing here? But rich people do rich things. So that was, a coinky-dink, according to some insiders, and not a coinky-dink, according to others, that led to a Starbucks disagreement out there in Indianapolis. But I digress. So what is next? Where does Aaron Rodgers go? Where does Kirk Cousins go? What about Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, all of that? What are these quarterback-hungry teams going to do? Well, Aaron Rodgers, according to multiple reports, now the Giants are contemplating kicking the tires on Aaron Rodgers, which, might be helpful for A-Rod. Doesn't have to move. He has the same facility, can hang out there in New York. But if you're the Giants, and what does that do for you if you bring in Aaron Rodgers to be your quarterback? He'd be the bridge, I guess, to whoever you ultimately drafted. And I think this is where I want to shift the conversation, because today in Indianapolis, we're going to see the quarterbacks work out. However, we will not see Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward work out, who are believed to be the top two quarterbacks in this year's draft class. And I bring that up because the NFL draft is a betting market that I know that every state is capable of betting the NFL draft. And there are some sports books out there that don't really want to put NFL draft odds out there. That all being said, there was a unique market that I thought moved interestingly the other day, which was team to make the first pick. So right now, as we all know, Tennessee has the number one overall pick. They're minus 225 to make the selection. That is not a massive number for Tennessee, because from everything we've heard, that number one pick is open for business. Tennessee has talked about they're not going to pass on a generational talent. Could it be Abdul Carter? Could it be Cam Ward? Could it be Travis Hunter? Or could a team like the New York Football Giants jump the Cleveland Browns to secure a quarterback at number one? The odds for the New York Giants to pick number one at DraftKings have significantly shortened this week. Last week, I was doing a radio hit here in Las Vegas on Raiders Radio, and we discussed that the Raiders were actually the second shortest odds at DraftKings to make the number one pick. Now the Raiders have shifted back to 12-1. I believe they're around 5-1. Actually, no, they were down to 3-1. I beg your pardon. A week ago. They have now moved back to 12-1 as the Raiders have the sixth overall pick, and the Giants have moved to plus 135. So does Joe Shane and the Giants front office fall in love with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? Do they look to jump the Cleveland Browns? Because Adam Schefter indicated earlier this week out at the Combine that at number 2, the Cleveland Browns are going to be looking at a quarterback. So if you're the Tennessee Titans and you're looking for a generational talent, whether that be Abdul Carter from Penn State or Travis Hunter from Colorado, if you trade back to 3, you're going to get one of those guys. If you're the New York Giants and you love Cam Ward, for instance, do you make that move to number 1? Interesting market to kind of keep an eye on at DraftKings, who will have the number 1 selection. Or you could ask yourself, at what point does the team having the number 1 selection have value of keeping said pick at minus 225? So keep an eye on that market out there at DraftKings. We're going to go behind the counter with Thomas Gable, get his insight on today's college basketball card. Who will they be cheering for behind the counter at the book? But hey, folks, if you're ready to get in on the action, First Bet has you covered. Sign up now.